He married the wrong woman, and I saw it long before he did, but when you're a father, you learn that some lessons can't be taught, they have to be lived. My name is Arthur James. I'm 76 years old, a retired school teacher who spent his life teaching others about wisdom and patience. Yet when it came to my own son, Michael, I failed to open his eyes. He was a bright boy, kind-hearted and trusting, and when he met Clara, he believed he'd found the woman of his dreams. She was beautiful, confident, charming, everything a young man could fall for. But behind that perfect smile, I saw a spark of pride, a sharpness in her tone that didn't belong to love. The first time she visited our home, she complimented my garden but rolled her eyes when I spoke about my late wife. "Oh, how sentimental," she whispered to Michael, not realizing I could hear. I ignored it then, thinking maybe I was too protective, maybe my old heart was seeing ghosts in a young woman's behavior. But deep down, I knew there was something about her that didn't fit the word forever. When Michael told me they were getting married, I smiled and hugged him, even though my heart grew heavy. He wanted a grand wedding, and I wanted to see him happy, so I offered to help pay for it. It wasn't easy. My savings were meant to keep me secure in my old age, but for a father, love often outweighs logic. Clara planned everything, the imported flowers, the designer cake, the venue by the lake that cost more than my entire yearly pension. She would talk to the vendors like a queen giving orders to her servants, and when I'd gently suggest something simpler, she'd smile that fake polite smile and say, "Arthur, you wouldn't understand, this is a modern wedding." I stayed quiet. I told myself, let her have her day. Maybe marriage will soften her heart. The months passed quickly, and soon it was the wedding day. The church was glowing with light and laughter, filled with guests dressed in silver and white. I sat in the front row, clutching my late wife's photo inside my pocket, wishing she were there to see her boy become a husband. When Clara walked down the aisle, she was breathtaking, a walking dream in white lace and pearls. But her eyes didn't search for love, they searched for attention. She looked at the cameras more than she looked at my son. Still, I told myself, don't judge Arthur, it's his moment, not yours. The ceremony ended beautifully, and everyone clapped as they were declared husband and wife. I even felt a tear roll down my cheek, a tear of hope that maybe, just maybe, I was wrong about her dad. Then came the reception, the place where her mask finally slipped. Michael made a heartfelt toast, thanking everyone, especially me, for raising him alone after his mother passed. It touched my heart so deeply that I could barely speak when he handed me the microphone and said, "Dad, no one deserves to speak more than you." I stood up slowly, looked around at the guests, and began, "I may be an old man, but I've learned that true love is built on respect and kindness. Without those, even the most beautiful wedding is just decoration." People nodded, smiled, even clapped softly. But when I looked at Clara, she was smirking. Then she laughed, not shyly, not kindly, but coldly. "Respect?" She said loudly enough for the hall to hear. Maybe if some people minded their own business, they'd still have families that love them. The air froze, my heart sank. I felt every eye turned toward me, waiting for a reaction. Michael's face turned white, his hands trembled, but he said nothing. He didn't defend me. He just stared at the floor while his new wife continued smiling proudly, as if she'd won something. I stood there for a moment, breathing deeply, trying to hold back years of patience and pain. I smiled softly and said, "You're right, Clara, you are different. And you're about to learn how different life can be when respect is gone." Then I placed the microphone down, walked calmly to the event manager, whispered a few words, and returned to my seat. 10 minutes later, the music stopped, and the lights dimmed. The host walked up to the stage, confusion written all over his face, and announced, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry, but the venue contract has been canceled due to a financial issue. Please vacate the hall within 15 minutes. A wave of gasps filled the room. Clara's smile vanished. She turned to me and screamed, "What did you do?" I looked straight into her eyes and said quietly, "I paid for this wedding, Clara, and I just pulled every dollar back." Her mouth fell open. "You can't do that," she shouted. "Oh, I can," I replied. "Because respect works both ways, my dear, and you chose not to give any." The guests began whispering, some clapping softly as if justice had been served. Clara's parents tried to argue, but no one wanted to listen. The fairy tale wedding was over. Michael looked lost, torn between love and realization. That night he came to my house alone. His eyes were red and his voice cracked when he said, "Dad, I didn't know she'd talk to you like that." I didn't know she was like that. I didn't scold him. I just handed him his mother's photo and said, "Your mom always told me. Love without respect is like a candle without a flame, pretty for a while, but it doesn't last." He sat there, silent, the truth hitting him harder than any punishment ever could. Within weeks, the marriage began to crumble. The arguments, the ego, the constant need for control, it all surfaced once the cameras and guests were gone. One morning, Michael called me and simply said, "She left." Months passed, and my son slowly found his peace again. He started visiting me every Sunday, bringing coffee and stories about his work. We'd sit on the porch, sometimes talking, sometimes saying nothing at all. One day, he looked at me and said, "Dad, thank you for not yelling that night. You let me see who she really was." I smiled and replied, "Sometimes silence is the loudest teacher, son." He nodded and smiled, and for the first time in months, I saw the boy I once knew, wiser, calmer, and more grounded. Now, when I look back, I realize that heartbreak can be a blessing in disguise. If Michael hadn't seen Clara's true face that day, he might have spent years trapped in a marriage built on lies. Life has a way of revealing the truth when we least expect it. And as I sit here watching the sun set beyond my old wooden fence, I whisper a quiet prayer that my son will one day find someone who doesn't need to be impressed, just understood. Because love isn't about perfect photos or fancy weddings. It's about respect, patience, and the quiet promise to never shame the one who raised you. He married the wrong woman, yes, but life made sure he learned the right lesson.